Well, hello, friends, neighbors. John, your Whiskey neighbor here. Welcome down to the Nook. Saturday, we're going to shoot some Irish whiskey. These are both sourced. They're actually wildly different. But I was down in Calgary and I was at Craft Cellars and I looked up. They still have this Jack Ryan single malt. Got an age stamp on it, 5 years, pretty darn young. But it's Bourbon, Madiera, and then finished in stout casks. This bad boy is released at 54.9% and is sitting on the shelves at 39 bucks Canadian. How could I not get that? Like that just, a lot of hopes. Is it good whiskey? Well, I've had some sips since I bought it last weekend, so why don't we get into it? If you have any Jack Ryan, I know they've got a 12 and a 15-year-old or any of their other finished material, why don't you pour a little? If not, pour a little Irish, but single malt Irish, and come on back. 3, 4. As I was saying in the opener, this was a phenomenal deal. But it's not a deal if the whiskey is no good, right? There's no point buying a bottle that you just don't want to enjoy. So let's talk this Jack Ryan Regalen Road. So this particular release, as you can see here, is 54.9%. It is sourced single malt, likely from Cooley, and they are whiskey finishers. That's a long time tradition in Ireland. Not as popular today, but I think maybe it's becoming, I should say, more popular again. What's interesting with the way they've finished this is I think it's got its age in ex-bourbon, because that's a pretty common way to age single malt in Ireland. And then it's got Madeira. I don't know how long in Madeira, and then very clearly finished in stout casks. And it is a local brewery or pub. And they did a whiskey where they took their whiskey barrels, gave it to them. They did a little whiskey finish on their beer, and then that beer cask then came back to Jack Ryan, and they did some finishing. So this is a single distillery. It's all malt, it's all barley, it's single malt, but not these guys. These guys don't make it. They don't have a distillery. And from what I hear, they're in family tradition. Like their grandfather or something had a pub and was finishing whiskey in the basement. Was it Bush Pub? Bush Beggars? Bush? I'll put it down below. But I think it's a really cool history, and that people still doing lots of family in that business. And I think that's just awesome. And they embrace the idea of sourcing some good casks and then finishing to how they want to try whiskey. So this is Bourbon Madeira Stout, single malt, 5-year-old Irish whiskey. Sweet, kind of creamy, a little full bready almost, but sweet light fruits, like really really nice. Pear apple type. Higher sweetness than that. What would that be? Almost stone fruit. Kind of stone fruit sweetness. So it's got a lot of sweetness, but then it does have a bready or a thicker malty or like another layer kicking around in the nose. It's got a little bit of young alcohol note to it. It is 5 years old and it's big proof. So maybe that's kind of kicking up. So it's got a little bit of that slight acetone in the nose. Other than that, creamy, sweet, fruity, malty. Let's try it in the palate. Sláinte. It's good in the palate. I expected it to be a little more full with that much alcohol. It's got a lot of heat, but it definitely continues that sweet stone fruit, a little bit of nuttiness, creamy, bready, full. Like I just said thin, and now I'm gonna say full, but I mean it's got some secondary notes that would play into malt sugars or cream of wheat or oatmeal, like that kind of little bit of fullness there. Not a lot of oak, surprising with bourbon and Madeira and stout cask. By that I mean just in and out of all those casks. I expected a little more oak. It's there, but it's kind of far in the back conversation. Let's try another sip. I got another thought going on. Cheers. Second sips, as they often do, bring so much more life to the whiskey in the glass. Now I'm actually getting just a little bit of spicing, which I didn't get earlier, a little bit of peppering, and I like that. Kind of perks up And this thought that I was having is definitely being realized now. So, I talked about stone fruits and sweetness and sweet fruits, and then some breadiness. Now it's actually heading into, I think it's got to be the Madeira cask, actually, more than the stout. The stout might be giving it some more of that honey sweetness and creamy, but I'm getting like almost like a light wine, sweet wine note going on, and it's taking over that sweet fruits into a sweet wine, which is interesting. So for me, it's really, Bourbon Madeira kicking around on a single malt, young but healthy. What's really nice is I'm not getting, and I got a little bit of alcohol now. We're in the second sip. It's not bothering me. It's actually surprisingly not bothering me. And I would say this is approachable. It's got good flavors, and you definitely try some water and find out like where is it expressive for your palate. I'm actually really liking this release, and I'm gonna come back to, I shouldn't have highlighted it so soon, that price. That's ridiculous. I have to say, I would happily pay probably what the full price, I don't even know what the full price is for this, but sitting on the shelf at 39 bucks Canadian, I really suggest it's a must bring home. It's really quite good. And I think with the ability at that proof to play into where you want, maybe try it in cocktails, maybe see how it holds up. I mean, I'm not a big cocktail person, but I could see this being a little more versatile just because it's got that extra ABV on it. I'm liking this. I'm actually truly just enjoying this. I wish it had more oak. I wish it had a little deeper fruit. It's a little playing in too sweet, it's a little too sweet. I'll just say it like that for me to be a knockout favorite, but no complaints at that price. Well, I feel like I was pushing out a lot of words this last one. I don't know, maybe I'm feeling rushed today with chores and things yet to do, but I'll try to slow down because I think whiskey deserves our time. This one is from Two Stacks, and you may know Two Stacks as the producers that put whiskey in those tiny cans that allow you to bring whiskey wherever you want. A couple of drams, easy in the golf bag or whatever. This is that same first blend. Now, I picked this because it's strong Irish, 65%. But the comparison between this Two Stacks and this Jack Ryan falls apart immediately because this Jack Ryan is it's 100% malted barley. So this is nothing but a single malt, likely from Cooley, whereas this is, it's got 40% dark grain, 40% light grain, 8% pot still, 10% double malt, 2% peated malt, and all of those are in different casks. We've got bourbon, virgin oak, Oloroso sherry. I think that's about it. So, this really showcases the art of blending different whiskeys, grain and malt, many different casks. This has a few casks, though, with Madeira, bourbon, and stout. So maybe that's not far off, and it's 65%. But I don't want to set this up like I think these should be similar. But they're both Irish. They're sourced. Let's give it a go. Let's try this blender's cut on the nose and palate. Oh, let's do the nose. Just so different from this one over here. This is darker, richer, slight smoke. I'm getting much more oak. Spices would be like, what are some slight, like almost a little bit of anise, Christmas cake. It's not just like pepper or cinnamon, like we've got different savory spices. Yeah, and it's playing more in, like there is a sweetness quality to it, just a kind of a brown sugar almost, like a sugar note, but I'm not getting distinct fruits, where this is definitely playing into some wine fruits for me. Let's try this on the palate. This is Sláinte. It's actually quite a bit hotter at 65. It definitely is something that I would recommend a little bit of water to get it to a more palatable proof. Here I have to take a smaller sip and just play with it. It definitely runs into those blends. So I've got a little more grain, a little more, and that peat gives it an earth, a darkness. The Oloroso gives me a little bit of leathered fruits kicking around, and then that spice palette that I could really get on the nose already is speaking here. And I'm going to say it's playing a little bit of that anise/licorice a little bit for me, and I don't remember that being a tasting note. I've talked to you about two cans several times on the channel. But Two Stacks, not two cans. But right now it's really about that interplay of darker fruits and spicing through, and the peat comes off as a little bit of earthy and slight smoke, and it plays into some dark oak casks. I would say that I clearly like this more, would pay more for it, I would buy it again before this Jack Ryan, but there's nothing wrong with this bottle whatsoever. Like, this is good enough that I will consider the next Jack Ryan release that shows up here and maybe bring it home, because this is great. And at 5 years, it's awfully young and tastes really, really good. If I'm going to give a star value, this is already at a 3 3/4, which for a young whiskey is phenomenal. This two stacks, it's got a place in my heart. I kind of like it. Like, not just kind of, I really do. I think they've nailed that blend. I know that sometimes that muddles a whiskey or confuses a whiskey. But if you haven't picked this up and you like those dark fruits, slight peat, like it's not a peat, but a little bit of smoke in from that peat, I don't know. I recommend it. It's easily a 4-star, maybe more. Anyways, thanks for joining me here. I feel like I pushed a lot of words your way, and that's not how I like to share whiskey with you. I'd much rather slow down, relax, and enjoy. So I hope you have an opportunity to slow down, relax, and enjoy, and have a great weekend. Thanks for joining me. You take care.